Hi, and welcome to another episode of Kuntarkis. My name is Michael Yon, and this episode is Living Energy Intelligence. So, here's Kuntarkis to describe.
I know I've never said this to you before, but I've said part of it. And it's because of my experience in a very unusual vibration, which I won't go into at this point. There's a reason why. But what you are, Michael, and every other single human on this planet, the only thing that separates us from that knowing is our conditioning, our fears, our emotions, and our insecurities. But what you are, Michael, is an L.E.I. You are an L.E.I. Do you know what that stands for?
Living Entity Incarnate.
No. It
Okay.
stands for Living Energy Intelligence.
Wow, Living Energy Intelligence, L.E.I, L-E-I.
Yeah, I will say this. I was speaking with a being last night, and he came around to me and he asked me, would I come with him? I says, yes, I would. Just like I've said before to the Nipulans. This being was the most amazing looking something that I've ever come across.
Living, what was it? He's a lie as well, is he?
It, yeah, yeah. So what you are living energy intelligence. And this being said, that it is not only you, it is all of the human species. But the human species have been put under a spell, not magic, conditioning. And that conditioning has gone throughout the ages, and it has kept humanity in a vacuum of ignorance. This is what this being is saying to me. But we need to wake up. We need to break the chains of our own imprisonment that we have put ourselves in. And we need to realize that we are created from living energy, but we are also intelligence because it is consciousness within living energy. And it evolves just like we as flesh beings do. And if we learn to connect with it, we can then grow so far beyond it, just like this being has done. He gave up everything in his existence for 7 lives from each incarnation on his own planet to learn what he really truly was. No one could answer that question. All they said, you're this, you're that, you're physical. But no one could answer what he was seeking. And he didn't know what he was seeking until one day he was walking in the most unusual forest that anyone could ever see. And right before him was presented a shimmering energy field. He looked at it from all sides, and it was flat if he looked on the edge. Yet it was wide, like, say, 60 centimeters right in front of him, about, say, 2 meters high, 2.5 meters high, shimmering. And he walked around the other side, and it was the same. He walked back, and he touched it with his palm. And it shimmered more, and then it spoke, and it took on form of a light being. And the being explained to him what he was, who he was, and what he is capable of as a species, as an essence, being L.E.I. And when he was told that, he literally felt, he said, he couldn't even describe what he felt, but it's like he found the biggest secret in the universe. And he worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. And what he did, Michael, was the next thing what I'm going to say is what I speak about. He literally worked on his body, and he dissolved over time, through 3 or 4 lifetimes, the actual physical cellular structure of his being until he became pure living energy in that form. And he could take on a physical body at will. And when he went to his parents in that life that he was presently in, he showed it to them because they wouldn't believe what he was saying. And he said, "What if I showed you?" And they laughed, even though they were intelligent alien beings from a world that I believe is billions of light years from planet Earth. And yet this being came to me. And you know, I don't cry physically, and yet I cried in spirit world. I sobbed like a little bloody baby. And what that was, it was my opening to another transformation of my own consciousness. And when he showed his parents what he was capable of and what he's been searching for so many lives before this one, they both sat down on what they call a chair. And they just said, both at the same time, "Continue, son." And he did. He explained the whole thing to me. And you'll come again. Because he knows that I'm like him. I'm a seeker of infinite knowledge. And that's why when he said to me, "You are living energy intelligence, living consciousness." Haven't I said that many times? Living consciousness, living energy. And yet I was putting it together. Okay? So that's what you are, Michael.
Isn't it amazing that if living energy is really the only thing, because it's from everything that comes, that we have the honor of being able to be conscious of ourselves, and we are of and only of the living energy. So we are living energy intelligence.
Yep. And that's the knowing, Michael.
The knowing.
That's the real knowing. That's the ultimate truth. And I have to describe this being to you if you want me to. I have his signature energy, but I never even asked his name. Funny part about it, Michael, his whole body was grey with black in the most pointiest parts. He didn't have clothes on. He didn't have sexual organs. His face was wide, and honestly, to me, I looked at him and he looked like a dragon face, but different, more subtle. Skin was smoother in most parts, but he had these black little blotches in the grey. And his smile was just incredible. He had no hair on his body whatsoever, but what he had on his head was what like a dragon would have. These unusual things that came out of the side of his head, and his ears were amongst them. No, it's like a prong. It looks like he could butt you with his head and probably stab you. It was incredible.
So was the prong in the center of his? Did he have one in the center, or did he have two to the side, or?
No, there were several on either side, mate.
Yeah.
It's really strange how it came out. The side part where his ears are, not like ours, there's this section that came out and went back, and his ears were there. It's like you could look him in the face and nearly see his ears. But there was no earlobes like we have. And his eyes were like a snake, like a tiger. They were white like ours, but it had a black center with, how would you say, with a slit like a cat that went straight up and down. And it was black, but it had this little white marks within it. And he could see at night as well as day. And they don't have a very big population, apparently. Apparently, he did say to me that a long time ago, he said, many, he said, of your years ago, he said they were attacked and over half of their civilization was destroyed because what the aliens wanted was a black rock that was on their planet in abundance. It was like a metal, and, they could use it maybe to make spaceships or whatever. And they never even negotiated with them. They just came down and started blasting the cities and blasting the people and killing them by the hundreds of thousands. And their civilization nearly got wiped out. But they managed to survive. And today, they're only probably still less than half of their population. But they are very progressive in their spiritual way of life now.
Thanks to him, maybe.
I believe it's a possibility, yes. There's probably other ones like him on that planet.
Have you ever even heard of a person like him in only 4 lives making such a transition?
Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Well, it is, but it's not at the same time, mate, because they're probably very more highly evolved than Earth.
I know, but even compared to there's Earth, but I'm talking about is it? He was in this universe, was he? Is his planet in this universe?
No, mate, no. His planet's billions of light years from Earth.
As in billions of light years from Earth, as in another universe.
In another universe.
And you burst out crying because tell us about that. Did you fall to the ground and just feel such a release because you realized you're reaching the next level? Tell us about that.
I did actually fall I fell to my knees on the ground and basically sat my rear end on the back of my legs, which is a normal posture for me. I've always done that throughout my life, many lives actually, as an Acharon, as human, and my legs go on the side of my body, right? And I meditate like that a lot. I can stay like that probably up to an hour easy. But when I fell down, I just felt this overwhelming, because he put his hand on my head. And I just felt this overwhelming, just to say energy. And it literally brought massive tears, but sobbing out of me. And apparently he did explain to me what the sobbing is. The sobbing is letting go. That's why a lot of humans cry, and they don't really get angry. They cry. They bury their anger, but how they release it is crying. I get a punching bag if I'm feeling really out of whack, and I just go whack, whack, bang, 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 kick, 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 kick. And I suddenly feel really good, and I go back to what I'm doing. But the point is also most people who are very, very angry and also pretty violent, they look to take their hatred, their violence, their anger, their emotions out on anyone, even if they don't know them, right? Bash the hell out of them and all that. Well, you're going to instantly create tremendous amounts of karma. The point is, if you're feeling out of whack, you've got to ask yourself the question, why? Okay? It could be many reasons. So you say to yourself, what's the solution? Well, some people go and listen to music. Some people go and eat. Some people go and drink. Some people go and smoke pot. Whatever. But me, I'll either go and say have a hard workout, or I'll go into the garage and punch the hell out of the punching bag, and then I'll apologize to it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got two things I call them the Kylie sticks, and they're about 60 centimeters long. I've shaped them and made them out of myself, and I use those sticks. And I find that I use it as an extension of my arm, my hand. And when I whack the punching bag, there is so much power within it. It's quite incredible. And you'd probably find you've probably got about, say, oh God, a whack like that.
The pressure, the
Could
force.
Yeah, anything between 400 and 500 pounds of pressure.
Wow.
Oh, I got to tell you this. There was this lady overseas, and she looked like a Muslim, right? Because she was wearing those things. And her husband, he punches bags. He must be into some sort of boxing or something like that. And he punched this certain machine that tells you how powerful your punch is.
Yeah.
And say it reached 490 pounds per square inch, right? She came along and she said, "Can I try it?" He laughed. He laughed at her. And he, "Oh, yeah, go along." He said, she won't do very much, probably 150. She was 5 pounds under him. I saw the swing and the punch. And apparently what it was, she's been watching him and she's been training herself. And it freaked him out. There was a video on. It was quite amazing. Michelle showed me, and I said,
Yeah.
"Wow,
Oh, wow.
incredible!"
There was a time I was lying in bed and I was happy to lay there instead of falling asleep. It was dark. My eyes were relaxed and I had them closed. And these, as I said to you, I asked you this a couple of weeks after I got to ask you, there were these black blobs. And the more I relaxed, the more they just lovingly moved around. And my logic is like, well, hang on, should I be frightened of this? Because this is not, I mean, I don't know. But like my heart was like, balanced. I was okay, and so I just let it happen. I found it not just entertaining; it was quite special. And when I asked you, you simply said, "Black is balance," and I just wanted you to elaborate if you could.
Okay. A lot of people, well, just explain it first. A lot of people have been conditioned, really highly conditioned, by the color white and the color black. Movies tell the whole story. Good guys wear white, bad guys wear black. Okay, that means I must be bad because I love black. I find black so balancing and so smooth within my own energy fields. I could never wear white because it doesn't fit with me. It doesn't vibrate with me. And yet, everything I do in life, in most situations, comes from my heart. Your heart is the purest essence of your entire existence beyond your mind and your soul. And that's why I love black. Black is balance. It's only because we have been conditioned that we believe black is evil. Because in the past, witches wore black. They were evil. Warlocks wore black. They were evil. Bad warriors wore black. So they were destroyed by the ones that wore green or grey or white. You see in martial arts, a good guy wearing white, a bad guy wearing black. Yet there was a movie called Joe something, American movie, just not many years ago. I found it really interesting. The two martial artists, the white guy, he was evil. And he wore white all the time. Suits, training gear, fighting gear. Where the other guy, he wore the most darkest charcoal as a suit that I've ever seen. And he was a good guy. He hardly spoke. He just did what he had to do. In the end, he ended up slaughtering his brother, which was the white, because he killed his master for no reason, and he turned black. When you say someone turns black, it doesn't mean it's because they're wearing black, or white, or green, or pink, or yellow. Blackness comes from evil that has been within us through so many lifetimes. We've been conditioned to live the evil every single lifetime because we've never resolved anything that we have done negatively to another or others. I will say this, you can be the blackest so-and-so on the planet, but if you really want to change and learn how to forgive yourself and ask for forgiveness from others, it can be done, but it takes so much effort. But I will say one thing. If a human animal or a human being eats of another human being and continues, they cannot go back to being good. Because what they've done will go so deep when it comes to evil that they will never recognize the goodness in anything. It's like these leaders at the moment that I was reading just yesterday. This whistleblower said, I can't pronounce his name, but I think it's in Ukraine. And the people who believe Ukraine is good are deluded by the illusion that has been set up by the CBCs, which is the criminal elite. The war that Ukraine is creating is a negative. The war that Russia is creating over them is trying to show the world the truth. But the media is blacking it all out to make the Russians look bad. And that's the sad part. But what they're doing in Ukraine, they have thousands of children that also have been saved by the Russians. Isn't that interesting? But what's more interesting is they kill little children so they can drink their blood. And what they're saying in this news report, Ukraine people high up are intoxicated with drinking children's blood. They can't help themselves. They have to have it. It's like a shark. When it smells blood, it has to have it. When a lion smells blood, it has to have it. And that's interesting. Same with dinosaurs. Back in the old dinosaur days, when I used to travel and I used to see how the dinosaurs lived. And when they tracked something, they weren't sniffing the animal. They were sniffing the invisible, there's a word for it, pheromone. They were smelling the pheromones, which is basically blood atoms odor. And that's why they were so vicious when they killed something and just ripped it apart, and they would drink the blood, lick the blood, eat the flesh that had the blood. Now, you've got to ask yourself the reason here. Why do humans now, who are carnivores, why do they just cook meat a few seconds one side and a few seconds the other? And when they cut it, it's dripping with blood in most situations. You've got to ask yourself the reason why. And it's a very low consciousness. Yeah. Have you ever noticed that you might have a smell of some certain type of food, right? Or some certain odor. And you may not come into contact with that for, say, 40 years. And suddenly you're overseas somewhere and that smell suddenly ignites a memory. Well, where do you think that gets ignited from? Your cellular memory. Whether it's negative or positive. That's why I'm saying that we are not just this physical body made up of over 4 quadrillion cells. We are literally living energy consciousness. Living energy intelligence. That's what we are. We have lost the connection to that understanding. And we have literally lowered ourselves into, I say, the blackness. Not the black color, the blackness of ourselves from our past.
Yeah, and you're saying that this wonderful being that you reckon was very healthy and good looking, wasn't he? Yeah.
Well, I tell you, he was full of life, that's for sure.
And you're saying, so he came and he said that there's just this carpet of magic of what did you say? Like there's this, we're in it, we're under a spell on this planet, and we're not even.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not aware of it.
Wow.
And we've been under that spell for hundreds of years. And we have to look at our past. If we had the ability to look at our past, each of us, it would shock us, absolutely shock us, to what human history was all about. The violence, the rape, the murder. It was just incredible. And we are one of the very few planets that have had such massive wars that we could just not accept.
And Kuntarkis, if I've killed countless people in countless lives on this planet and whatever before, let's say, which is inevitable if I've been around for whatever long I have, then I must have then the answer's still the same always, isn't it? Whenever you come again, you simply do your best. Do not what you ever know is your best. Whatever temptations you may have, just do good, right? And as you continue to do the best for yourself, that will eventually, after whatever amount of time and incarnations, help you lead to being the being that you wish to be.
You change your karma, mate, to a positive. Eventually, the positiveness overrides the negative. And that's what it's all about. It's like if you get an urge to go out and kill someone, right? Or kill another because you can't help it. Ask yourself why. It comes from your cellular memory, maybe 100 lifetimes ago, or 1,000 lifetimes ago, or one lifetime ago.
Including that exact spirit, possibly, that you had been killed by.
Exactly. And that's why we're on the wheel of life. And it's not just one wheel of life, as I've already expressed. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of wheels of life. And we're all on a different wheel of life with a different type of family. So we can sort out what we used to do to each other in other lifetimes in such a horrendous, maybe horrible way.
Yeah, so it's like more likely that most people, someone's can help maybe realize that most of the people that are in their lives, even some of the people they run into occasionally and lock eyes with for even a little bit of time, most of the people generally have been in shared lives in the past with them. Isn't that the case? It's very unlikely for them maybe to run into people that they haven't necessarily ever walked past before in a past life.
Well, you're right, 100%. Here's a very quick example. Have you ever just walked around somewhere and went near someone and you can't stand being near that person? Or you've met someone and you find you can't tolerate them?
Or the opposite, yeah.
Or the opposite. That's why you've been together in another incarnation, and something negative happened, and it's aroused that emotion within you, because we don't deal with our emotions. People say they do, but I tell you something now, it's probably 3% out of the entire population.
Wow, 3%.
Right? I mean, look at our governments. Look at our so-called leaders. How emotionally unbalanced are they? And look what they're doing to us. They're literally following an organization that's not even the government, called the World Health Organization or the World Economic Forum, who are all pedophiles and bloody mass murderers and children killers. I mean, how do we grow consciously in the knowing that we have these people that are supposed to be looking after us as a government?
Speaking of governments, Kuntarkis, I was fortunate enough to land on as I was editing our audio, I was taking time to, when I was, fixing some macros and this and that, and I was listening to Elon Musk have a audio conversation that was shared with Donald Trump. How amazing is that? Have you maybe heard about that?
I haven't, mate, but I have known that he's been invited on his parliament when he goes into office. Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, I know a lot of us would probably really love to hear. I mean, this is just my own thoughts, but like to hear Donald Trump actually just kind of slow down and be like, yeah, I felt it when something happened. Like, instead of to be like go with his words. But he's on a track and he's going with it, and Elon certainly certainly respects much of what he's saying, and it's good. Like, Trump, I was really happy to hear what, it's like a podcast. It's like this. There's two of them, and they're just back and forth, and good on them. I'm really happy that they did that, because it can give an opportunity for people to
Can I ask a favor of you?
Please.
Can you set up a podcast that I can communicate with Elon Musk, please?
Favor, yeah. An episode where you can talk with him, yeah. Okay.
That's your viewer.
Pardon me?
You're the one that asked.
Yeah. Oh, really? I'm the interviewer, and it's between you and Elon Musk.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
I really believe Elon Musk would find it very interesting if he discovered that in his previous life he was Nikola Tesla.
Do you wonder what he might say if you mention that?
I know. I wouldn't wonder what he was going to say. I actually think I know what he would say. He would look at me and smile and say, yes, softly, yes, because I think he knows. But he won't say because he doesn't want to look like a fool in front of people who wouldn't understand. Because most people don't understand.
Kuntarkis, what don't people understand about evil on Earth?
The evil that's on Earth has got nothing to do with a devil. It's got nothing to do with a god. They are, how would you say, a fantasy, an illusion that was created several thousand years ago. And man's been conditioned by it. It's very easy to condition a society from one lifetime to the next. Once you indoctrinate, like say a child into say a religion at school age, by the time they're 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, they're lost. The ones that rebel against it, they're the smart ones. The ones that just go for it, they're just going to live a life of illusion, something that is an illusion. And I know I'm going to say something here that's going to probably offend people, but I'm sorry, you've got to research. You've got to start waking up and looking at what really is the truth and what really is illusion. My book, Entrapment, whether it's the first one or the one I've now got ready for republishing, that has more value than any Bible on earth because it tells you exactly the truth. It doesn't fantasize. It doesn't tell you about different characters that were supposed to be these great people that helped, humanity through religion. It tells you who we are, what we have done, and why we are the way we are. That's the only thing that will set an individual free or a mass free. It's our emotions that hold us back from seeing any form of reality in any way. And if we keep living like that, well, that's all we ever know. That's all we ever understand. I know this person, I won't mention who, but I know this person that had a situation back when they were a kid. And that's going back like roughly about 30, 35 years ago, that they had a very nasty situation that went on for a small portion of their life. And it changed them emotionally. And that's the really sad part. When you cause damage to a child, that child will grow up with fears, insecurities, eventually hatred, eventually disrespect, eventually violence, or they'll just cry every day of their life. All of that is based on emotion. Only recently has that person who's now in their 40s, they have literally gone to a psychologist because they've been taking, that person has been taking all their past negative emotions out on their wife and their children for years and years. They've been told they have to do something or they're going to lose everything. So this person has now gone to a psychologist and they're trying to get rid of all their inner anger. Inner anger can come from many sources, mostly from experiences, some, which can be quite a lot in some situations, from their parents transferring of their own genetics in the characteristics, be it negative or positive, from those parents. That, coupled with their own emotions, maybe they had a bad trauma, can literally spark off the cellular memory to a point that will create so much more negative situations. And if we leave it go throughout our life, it will transform our life into a negative path. But it can change into a positive path.
That's okay. Yeah. Can you go back and say that? That's interesting because you're saying like when you seek to change yourself in a positive way, and maybe you go and see a psychologist, which could be seen as a positive step. Are you saying that it can spark so much that it's still up to you whether your life goes more positive in the way that you want it to change, or even more negative because you might get interest? Like it could just be a spark for other things to reawaken. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Dealing with your emotions of what's been created when you were a child or into young adulthood and you've never looked at it shapes your life. In most cases, it can create fear, it can create tremendous insecurities, it can create illness and even an early death because of what you're feeling internally. It's like saying what you feel negatively internal will come to the external, which is outwardly, and you'll project it around the world, around yourself, around your family, around your friends. And that's because you're not dealing with it.
And it shows, doesn't it? Like this being that you saw, like it shows, like like there's palm reading and stuff, but there's also like it's pretty easy to see a person's body language or how much emotion they're holding on to by their body weight or whatever else. Like people can be read like a book pretty quickly, can't they? And yet they don't. They kind of think, well, moving forward, I am that I am, and they just keep going. But they're holding it, and it's pretty obvious to see.
That's right. Absolutely, mate.
But moving forward, they can feel better.
Yeah, we have to be willing to move forward. That's very true. We have to be willing to change. The book Entrapment, as far as I'm concerned, and not because I wrote it, by the way, the book of knowledge is me. Entrapment is me. And the reason I felt that I could write Entrapment and the book of knowledge was because of where I come from as an Acharon. I was a scientist, a doctor researcher in 3 lifetimes, one after the other. And I researched all about why an Acharon feels what they feel. And I literally discovered that emotion is something that every species in every universe has to learn to understand. When you learn all about emotion, it no longer affects your life. You become a feeling being, and the emotion just becomes a memory. It's no longer needed because you don't need to react in a negative way to anyone. But if you feel as a feeling being, you are being spontaneous, and your life becomes spontaneous
And effortless. It becomes more and more effortless, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. This concludes another episode of Kuntarkis. If you'd like to find out more about Kuntarkis, find his website, which is etcconsciousness.com. He has articles there, he has his books listed there, and also if you have any reason to contact us in general for any reason, just email kuntarkis@gmail.com. That's it for now. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Michael Yon, and stay tuned for more.